Hello everybody, my name is Griffin with Electric Bike Report, and today we are bringing you the Bunch Bikes, the original. This electric cargo bike has a front box where you can haul just about anything you can imagine. Today we're going to take a dive into this review and find out who this bike is best suited for. So as we take a deeper look into who this bike is best for, it is clear that Bunch designed this with families in mind, particularly families with younger children. This bike comes equipped with 4 different spots for safety harnesses on 2 different benches. So obviously you can keep 4 kids in here and ride along, pushing them along. That gives you the option of taking them to school, taking them to the park, or even making trips down to the grocery store with them. Now, Bunch was very smart in how they constructed this because it is a cargo hauler with a big box, but there's a lot of room for creativity and imagination in how you choose to use it. The bike comes with a 350-pound weight rating, and those benches in there are removable. So you can take those benches out, you can fit a couple of larger dogs in here, or you can fit basically whatever your imagination comes up with that will fit in that box. They've included some safety harnesses for little passengers that you'll be riding with. Now what this does is it overlays on top of each other like that, and then it clips down here into this belt. Along with that, they have this strap that will come across to help keep the harness in place and on the shoulders. And just like that, it'll keep everyone secure and in the box for the ride. Now, in addition to the safety harnesses, these seats right here, they are removable, or you can use them as extra storage as well if you have smaller items that you don't want bouncing and rattling around. There's just this latch right here at the bottom, which is lockable if you need to keep anything secure in here. Just comes up quick and easy like that. This will slide forward so you can store in there, or it can just slide out entirely, opening the box up, giving you a lot more room inside for whatever it is you need to haul in here. This is marine grade quality wood that they've used here. It's got a rubber lining on top to keep those edges a little bit softer so that people riding inside don't have to feel the edges. And moving more towards the front of it, so this you can actually get a different door up here up front that will have this door right here that would swing out. It's gonna make it easier for kids to hop in or for pets to jump up in there as well. Now on here, as an added safety feature, you've got a couple reflectors right here, and then underneath there is this headlight. Now that headlight, that comes stock, like a lot of the headlights that we see on bikes. It's more for being seen than seeing. It does have a fairly wide beam and it will help you see the path a little bit, but definitely not something that's intended to entirely enable you to ride around at night. For something like that, you'll probably want to get an additional light. Moving along the side here, we see more of the features at play. Again, you have this 2-step system. Kids can step up at this first step and in here, jump into the box themselves. It also comes with steel fenders, which is really great. It's going to keep both the driver and those in the box nice and dry. And of course, you've got the reflective stripe that's along these Schwalbe Big Apple tires right here. Last but not least, this handlebar is adjustable, as you can see. By loosening the bolts on either side, you can raise or lower this to accommodate you so that you are sitting nice and upright as you're riding around with your little riders inside. Really great. It accommodates riders 5'2" up to 6'5", I believe. So you have a very wide range in who can take this bike out. Okay, so one of the first questions that we had when we got the Bunch bikes, the original, was how's it going to be propelling a bike of this size forward? Would it be difficult at all, or how is it going to ride? And I'm actually really happy to report that the drivetrain and the motor combination that they chose here is really up to the task for what this bike is built to do. So in the back here, we have a Shimano Acera 8-speed drivetrain with an 11 to 34 tooth range. Up front, we have a 38 tooth crankset. Now, we found this to be just the right balance because it's not too hard to get started with, and it's just large enough to keep you going at some slightly higher speeds. Now, obviously, this isn't built with like massive climbing or anything in mind, so that gear range felt very appropriate for this bike. But obviously, you're gonna need a little bit of help and assistance. Since you can load this up front with 4 kids or a bunch of cargo, having that motor back there assist you as you ride is definitely key. And I'm very happy to report that this 500-watt Dapu rear hub geared motor felt very, very good on the bike. Powering this rear hub motor, we have a Samsung 48-volt 13.6 amp hour battery that they have tucked away here under this rear rack. It comes with an integrated rear tail light so that riders and drivers behind you will be able to see you. And it's got this charging port on the left-hand side so you can charge it on the bike or remove it and easily charge it off the bike as well. Now, Bunch claims that this battery should be able to help you ride 25 to 35 miles on a charge. Now, to test how that claimed battery range of 25 to 35 translates in the real world, we went ahead and took the Bunch bikes out on our local trail here in St. George, Utah. Now, what we had found out is we got 20.2 miles while riding on this in the highest level of pedal assist. I averaged just a hair under 15 miles an hour at 14.9 miles an hour, which was a pretty good cruising speed for me on most of it. It is a fairly busy trail, so I did have to slow down a couple of times behind people. I could have maybe had a higher average speed, but in all honesty, that 15 miles per hour is pretty good. So where this got 20 miles of range, that's pretty good because we are kind of doing a little bit of extreme testing. To keep the consistency across all the tests we're doing on the Bunch bike, we have these 100 pounds worth of sandbags up here in front because we know that when you're riding this out, you're probably going to have cargo or small children with you. So to get 20 miles, when we're weighing it down on full pedal assist, all in all, it's pretty good range, and I think it probably will hit pretty close to that max 35 miles. We are not testing this one on level 1 pedal assist. We feel pretty confident it's going to get fairly close to that expected 25 to 35 for your needs when you're out riding this bike. All right, so moving up to the cockpit area here, what you're gonna notice first on the handlebars are these faux leather grips that come with foam padding. I found these to be very comfortable while you're out riding. On this right-hand side is where you have these trigger shifters that control the Shimano Acera drivetrain that we mentioned earlier. Back here on the brake side of things, we have these Tektro Auriga hydraulic disc brakes. And then on the left-hand side, you'll notice the thumb throttle, as well as your control center for adjusting pedal assist up and down. Now that is all found on this display right here on this LCD display, which does have adjustable tilt so you can get just the right angle for however tall you're riding. On this display is where you're gonna notice a mile per hour readout, your odometer and your trip distance, as well as your average speed. Top right-hand corner is where you'll find the battery life remaining as it shows it in a 5-bar display. And then on this left-hand side, it'll show you your different levels of pedal assist. Levels 1 and 2 are considered eco mode on this bike. Levels 3 and 4 are standard, and then level 5 is turbo. Now, those 5 different levels of pedal assist that we saw on the screen, they have a very distinct real-world feel in each one of those levels. So to see how that translates over onto the road, we put the Bunch Bike Original on our circuit test. Now, if you're not familiar with the EBR circuit test, it is a 1-mile loop consisting of 4 right turns and a slight hill that you have to get to the top of. So we take the bike out and put it on each level of pedal assist, and we also do a lap with no assist at all, just to try to gauge the average rolling speed of this bike. Now, it started out at around 10.5 miles per hour on my own leg power, and it increased from there. Levels 1, 2, and 3 were separated by about 1 mile per hour each, and then levels 4 and 5 jumped up by about 2 miles per hour each. Now, a couple of things worth noting, some insights that we got while testing it. First is this bike does climb up all the way to 20 miles per hour in those higher assist settings. Now, I don't necessarily recommend that you do travel that fast in this bike, especially if you have children up front. It's not to say that it was not stable or unsafe or anything like that, but just given the nature where it is a 3-wheeled trike instead of a bike, if you come up on a bump in a road, sometimes it can run the risk of lifting up one wheel if you're hitting that at high speeds. And especially with little ones, it's just not something I would look to do. So me personally, I like to keep it to about 15, maybe 16 miles per hour, which you can do in that level 3, level 4 of assist. Now, the good news is, if you agree with me that you might want to keep those speeds a little bit lower if you're traveling with children, it's very easy to do. You just stay out of pedal assist level 5. You can kind of treat it as one of those things where it's nice to have it and not need it, instead of need it and not have it. It is there if you're ever hauling other cargo and you know you have a perfectly flat road in front of you, and then maybe you can travel at a little bit of higher speeds if you've got the handling down. Overall though, it did ride pretty well. I didn't feel like I had to do too much work on my own in those lower levels of pedal assist, and I thought the motor performed pretty good. Bunch has equipped this with Tektro Auriga hydraulic disc brakes. The front using the E-Twin model brake, the rear using the E-Tune model brake. Now both of those are on 160 millimeter rotors, and that's a dual piston hydraulic disc brakes. They provide pretty good stopping power, and not only do they provide pretty good stopping power, but they do come with park brakes as well. Since you're on 3 wheels here instead of 2, you don't need a kickstand or anything like that, but the bike does have a tendency to roll forward unless you do engage that parking brake. It's really convenient and handy to have. Another thing worth noting with the brakes is you don't have to be shy at all when pulling those front brakes. You don't have a high risk of doing an end over or anything like that while riding this one, so you can really pull on those front brakes, which is going to provide you with the best stopping. And then of course you can pull on that right one, which will control the wheel underneath the rider. To show you how these brakes perform, we're going to go ahead and do a little brake test. So one thing to know about this bike is it weighs about 152 pounds and it can support a 350 pound total payload capacity between the rider and anything that you have in the front. That's in total pushing 500 pounds in motion. So we want to make sure that these brakes are up to the task of stopping all that weight as it's going forward. Now, this bike is a class 2 e-bike, which means it is capable of speeds up to 20 miles per hour. Now, I have found that when I was out riding this, 20 miles per hour is just a little too fast on this style of bike for my preference. So I am going to be riding it at 20 miles per hour as we perform this brake test today. I don't necessarily recommend that you take it all the way to 20 miles per hour, especially if you have like little children in the basket with you. I found that speeds closer to 15 or 16 miles per hour is a little bit better for that. But just to show you the full capabilities, we are gonna go ahead and test it at 20 miles per hour. We've also put 100 pounds of sandbags in the front here to try to push the limits all the way up to that 350 pound payload capacity. 100 pounds here, I myself weigh 230 pounds, so we're looking at 330 pounds, and we're gonna see if these brakes can get the job done. All right, so after having done that test and gone through it 5 different times to get an average, I came to a stop out of 20 miles per hour on the Bunch Bike Original at about 17 feet 7 inches on average. Now that is honestly kind of blowing me away. When we first started setting up for this test, I was a little tempted to say, let's scoot the cones back to go outside the like 30 feet or so that we allow ourselves. Because I thought with all this weight going forward, like we're pushing the bike to its extremes. I wonder if it's just gonna keep sailing by a little bit. But 17 feet 7 inches is actually a very competitive stopping power on a lot of the electric bikes that we've tested, not just like an electric trike, but electric bikes, period. I think that's actually really confidence inspiring, knowing that you can come to a stop that quickly when you need to, especially when you're carrying kids or something else in here that you obviously don't wanna have like a crash with. Not only that, but I discovered something while we did this test. You can probably see from the footage that the back wheel kind of kicked out a little bit and skidded, but it's honestly the first time I've really done that on a bike and I didn't feel like I was going to fall. Having those 2 like front wheels, just as the back end kicked out, I didn't feel like I was gonna fall off it even like a little bit. I felt in control the whole time. So again, coming to a stop as we are clearly pushing this thing to its limits between my weight and the weight we have in here. Overall, I'm just walking away very impressed, and I think Bunch has put the right brakes onto the original. All right, then in taking a look at some of the benefits of the features that they have on this bike in terms of handling, I first want to start with the steering damper that they have going on beneath the bike. Now, if you don't know what a gas spring damper is, it's similar technology to what you find in the trunk of a car or that lifts up the rear window. How it's used here is it's what's going to help keep you kind of straight so that you aren't wobbling back and forth as you go out on a ride, which is really nice and really appreciated because as you're riding, you can definitely feel it at work. You go pretty straight until you turn the handlebars yourself. As far as the handling goes when you're out on the road with the motor, it feels very well, and that is thanks to the torque sensor that translates that to the pedal assist and dictates on how much power it gives you as you're putting more force into those pedaling. That feels very good and very smooth when you're out on the road, so that if there is a little bit of fluctuation as you start going up some hills, your legs will feel it, but the motor will feel it almost instantly too and start sending you more power. Makes it very comfortable. Now, as you're steering this, it's got a little bit of a different sensation. It's a little bit similar to as you're steering a shopping cart or a lawnmower. And there's a couple of things to note. As you turn, there is some technology built into the frame of this bike that's going to actually kind of assist you and start leaning you into the turn. Now that's very important. You wanna give yourself plenty of leaning room because you don't ever wanna lift up one of those wheels because then you're gonna feel very unstable. But like I said, it's going to assist you each time, left or right. Just make sure you keep going a little bit more, to help keep that wheel down. Now, something that is very important to note, when it comes to bike riding, if someone has never ridden an electric bike before, but they do have bike riding experience, they can figure out pretty quickly how to ride an electric bike. You can ride it just up and down your neighborhood, get a sense for how the motor and the gearing all work together, and then braking at higher speeds. But it's something you can pretty comfortably learn in about 15 to 30 minutes on the bike. This is going to be a little bit different if you've never ridden a trike setup with 2 wheels up front and 1 in the back. Now, what I would say by that is if you're looking at purchasing the bunch, you've probably got a purpose in mind, whether it's taking your kids to the local park, whether it's making grocery store runs, or just going out for a ride with your dogs. Now, whatever trail you have in mind, I would probably ride that a few times and get comfortable with it before you start loading anything up into the front of this. Only reason for that being is, like I said, this is something that's designed to travel at a little bit of lower speeds so that you keep everything safe and secure. As you hit like bumps in the roads or any potholes or something like that, it's going to feel different than it does feel on a bike. Now, it's something that you can get the hang of in time and then you'll be a champion with it. But just in general, get comfortable with your routes before you start loading the kiddos inside, just to keep things as safe as possible. All right, now we want to jump into the overall build quality as well as just some of the very thoughtful features that Bunch had in mind when they constructed this bike. Starting with that frame quality, every metal part you're going to see on it is solid steel and it is all rust proof. In addition to that, as you can see, the box up front is made of wood, but it is marine grade wood, so it shouldn't deteriorate over time, shouldn't warp, shouldn't have any of those issues as it is sealed. In addition to that, Bunch has really thought through a lot of the different accessories that you can add onto this bike. As you can see, we have a sunshade up top here, which is kind of giving the overall look a little bit of an Oregon Trail vibe, but I actually really like that kind of wagony look. Like, it just seems to fit when you're gonna have kids in there. And trust me, they're gonna appreciate having this on those summer months to help keep them shaded and cool. And in addition to this sunshade that we have here, we also have some of the foam padded inserts to add some extra cushion and comfort for the kids as they're riding in there. Now, these are an additional accessory, but I kind of view them as crucial. If you are gonna have kids riding in this, probably give them just that little bit of extra like foam padding just to make it a more comfortable ride so that when you do hit bumps, they don't gotta, jostle around too much on the wood. But again, we're just very impressed with a lot that they have to offer. In addition to what we do have featured on this bike, their website has even more accessories where they have thought out a lot of other options. You can get a rain cover that you can ride around with to keep little passengers inside dry or to keep your cargo dry. There is a total cover for if you have to store this outside to keep the elements off of it. You can get a vinyl wrap on here if you are using this for a business to deliver goods. You can even get a different front door that has an optional swinging door to make it easier for kids or for pets to hop in there on their own. They also offer an additional child seat that you can attach to this rear rack if you have 5 kids you need to haul on this bike. Bunch clearly thought through a lot of different ways to use this bike, and they're enabling you to do that with those accessories that they're offering. And it all comes on top of a bike that has got some really solid construction. So at the end of this review, if there's one thing I could say about the Bunch bike, is it's just a very well thought out and solid bike for what this is. You've got a lot of options here. It is clearly meant to be something that you haul around the kids in, but again, you're limited only by your imagination with what you can do inside of this. They offer such a good, wide range of accessories for you to accomplish whatever you're setting out to do with this bike that it's really something that I think a lot of people will find appealing. Overall, it's very solid construction. They chose good materials here with the frame and with the box itself, and we really did like the componentry. The motor felt very natural on this bike. The brakes, quite frankly, blew us out of the water with how they performed. One other factor that I think is very important to bring up is it's just pretty fun in its own way. I've watched every member of our EBR team hop on this for the first time, and just about everyone had kind of this goofy smile when riding it. There's just a fun factor here that's hard to fully put into words and articulate, but that fun is something that a lot of families are gonna find appealing as they're going around with this. Also, with all of the hundreds of miles that I have ridden here on the local trails on numerous e-bikes, we often turn heads as we're going on the trails. This bike will turn just about every head, and even some of that fun factor It was contagious out on the trails. For all the miles I've ridden out there, I've never gotten a double thumbs up until I took the Bunch bike out on the trail. So all in all, very impressed with what they did here. Again, I'm Griffin with Electric Bike Report. This has been Bunch's The Original. It's been a blast to review. If you enjoyed this video, please give us a like. If you haven't already, you can subscribe down below. And if you want to know more, dive a little bit deeper into the details, see some of the pros and cons on the Bunch The Original, we'll leave a link down below with a full written review at our website. If there's something that we missed out on in this video, if you have questions, if you have thoughts on it, please let us know in the comments down below, and we'll see you next time.